Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Jim Morrison. With us today, we have Joan Trice, CEO of Altera Group, and Craig Steinley, the 2023 President of the Appraisal Institute. We'll be discussing what appraisers can expect from the upcoming year and some of the plans he has for his presidency. Joan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome, Craig. It's good to see you. I understand you might be in the midst of a blizzard, perhaps?
Yeah, I am, and I'm not quite sure when this will be shown, Joan, but today it's howling out there and has affected some travel plans for me later in the week here. So always a challenge when you live in the upper Midwest.
Well, I guess it would be rude of me to tell you how lovely it is in sunny Sarasota today.
I expect it, Joan. You should really.
I can't resist. I'm sorry.
This is the time of year to rub it in. Now I'll call you in July and August, and we'll trade stories then. But
well, you know, that's an interesting backdrop to what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about the future of the profession. So you're in a completely different perspective from where you're sitting than I'm sitting right now. So I'm a little bit protected. I live in a little bit of a real estate bubble, if you will, meaning I don't mean bubble as in boom and bust. I mean a protective bubble. Florida has trends that aren't following the rest of the nation, at least at the moment. Let's talk about the market and what the heck is going on out there.
Yeah, it was an extremely quick ride up, of course, for many of us. And in my part of the country during the 2008 run-up, we didn't experience a lot of that here, and I know that you did where you live. And as a result, the downward trend on the other side, when we had that economic setback, really didn't affect us here. This time, however, even areas throughout the area where I live have experienced the run-up, and so are prone to some potential correction here in the market. We've heard from a lot of the experts. I know that you've been hearing this as well, that there is a potential for somewhat of a market correction here as interest rates continue to drive affordability down for people, and those who bought at the very tail end of the run up now are struggling to try to figure out how to stay above that value curve. But in general, you know, we've had some more positive economic news lately about where interest rates are trending and what's happening with inflation. So it may be possible that the purported soft landing will certainly affect our profession in a positive way as well.
One can only hope.
Yes.
So Craig, now that you're the newly elected president of the Appraisal Institute, what's on your agenda? What would you like to accomplish during your tenure?
Joan, I think 2023 is going to be an outstanding year for the profession and for the Appraisal Institute. We've put in place a number of initiatives that are going to come to market. I know in your interview with our president last year, he was suggesting to you that we were putting those in place, building the blocks to make sure they happen, and that's really what I expect to see in 2023. As an overview, and I want to treat this the way we normally do. You and I converse a lot. We really, as a board, had to move away from this idea that everyone who comes to the board is intelligent, they're successful in their practice, and they have great ideas. And when they come to the board for their service, they want others to believe in their ideas. And pretty soon you have a board that is passing one great idea after another. And when we finally took stock, I've been on the board since 2014, so I've watched the process with fascination. When we finally took stock of what we were asking our capable staff of doing, you know, there were 62 or 63 different initiatives that they were trying to focus on. And you know what happens when you have too many things you're trying to do. So we're focused on 5 now. And in answer to your question, I want to get those 5 further across the finish line. We have several others teed up that I'd really like to see come to the market as well. These help the profession. They certainly make the AI more inclusive as they're launched, and more of a place for individuals to say, you know, I can see myself associated with that organization.
Well, Craig, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want you to share with me what are those 5+ items so we know what's on your agenda. Jim?
We've got exciting product news for you. Cubicasa, the floor plan app, has announced free floor plans are now available across the nation. The best part is it takes only 5 minutes at the property to complete the scan with no disto or measuring needed. In addition to the free version of floor plans now offered across the US, Cubicasa will also be making available ANSI-aligned digital GLA product for as low as $15 per scan, as well as expanded options for you to configure the product to best meet your needs. Find out more or start your free scans, visit cubicasa.com.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Craig, I left the audience hanging. What's on your agenda?
Well, let me just run through the 5 real quick. And if
Okay.
you want to, dive deep into any of them, I'm happy to do that. The first one that came up makes the most sense for the Appraisal Institute, in my opinion, and that is to modernize our education delivery system and the products that we offer in our educational inventory. And AI and quality education are synonymous with each other. And there's no doubt that through technology and through maybe complacency to some extent, we ended up in a position where we want to modernize those things. We want to do better and bring back a lot of the students that count on AI education. The second one is to modernize our social media presence, something that you're particularly familiar with, Joan, and including our website. And have great news to share about the launch of our new website here shortly. The third thing that goes without saying, it's a rather massive undertaking. It maybe not, it's not on the scale with the other 4, but that's to develop and implement a plan to recruit and retain professionals in the Appraisal Institute organization. And that's multifaceted, what we're rolling out there. The fourth thing that we are extremely interested in doing as one of the initiatives was the diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan to develop and then implement one of those. And I've saved the best for last by some accounts, and that is to implement the Appraisal Institute's FIRREA program, Joan. So those are the 5 that we settled on as a board. And as President Bishop shared with you in your last interview with the AI president, it was a super inclusive process. We had input from staff, from the board, from outside organizations, from professionals that we hired, and certainly from our members that tried to prioritize just these 5 instead of 60 some at once.
Wow. Well, that's, they're all so interrelated.
They are.
And intertwined that they all, frankly, that makes perfectly good sense to me. So, Craig, let's talk about that 5th pillar, the FIRREA project, because that one I know a lot of different organizations are struggling with, and frankly, the entire appraisal community is struggling on how we replenish the troops. As everybody constantly reminds us, we're an aging population, and now we have downward market pressures on everybody's businesses, which will perhaps accelerate some retirements for some, which we certainly don't need. So how do you see FIRREA helping to bridge the gap?
Joan, you've been around long enough to know that the concept of FIRREA, to have an alternative for experience to the traditional supervisor trainee model, really originated in the regulatory space, where regulators were fielding those calls of, I can't break into the profession. I can't find a supervisor. Is there any other way that I can enter? Because it was ultimately the regulators across the state and the appraisal boards that were asked to do something about that. So when the Appraisal Foundation started talking about this alternative that would be virtual and simulated, the flight simulator for appraisers, as is often discussed, we knew it would not solve all of the issues of providing an individual with the complete A to Z kind of training that they might get in the traditional supervisor trainee program. But it is so important to have a different path for appraisers, aspiring appraisers, particularly to get into the profession. And I think in many ways that explains why we developed into a profession needing more diversity, because the challenges for some were much greater than others of getting into the profession that has been so rewarding to many of us. The AI FIRREA concept, then we took what the foundation, the Appraisal Qualifications Board had put together and allowed. As you're probably aware, we competed in the Pathways to Success grant program that the foundation launched to sort of incentivize providers to develop a FIRREA program. And when they announced that there was $500,000 that would be available for grants, and that it may be divided among other organizations, we weren't deterred. When we submitted our plan, as you know, all of that money went to the Appraisal Institute. And we also, through the board action, offered an additional $2 million toward our technology backbone and implementation of the Appraisal Institute FIRREA. We promised through that grant program to launch by September of this year. It's going to be a very robust implementation of FIRREA. And I think we're going to beat that timeline, but AI FIRREA is going to be that spark, I think, to allow the profession to be more naturally controlled by the market. If you're an aspiring appraiser, one of the major roadblocks to getting in will be removed through the Appraisal Institute FIRREA. I'm really looking forward. You know, we're anticipating several hundred students at first when FIRREA is offered, and I think that kind of indicates the demand that's out there, Joan, for a supervisor trainee alternative, which is what FIRREA intends to satisfy.
That was fantastic. I am very excited to see when you roll that out, what that looks like, because I grew up under the AI education regime and was a SRA for several decades. And it served me well in my appraisal practice, no doubt. Well, Craig.
Joan, if I could, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
go ahead.
I wanted to follow up with one other thing about the FIRREA concept, is that there are a lot of practices, a lot of appraisal businesses out there where the principals don't have the ability necessarily to take someone on and train them. But we've seen great demand among those kinds of individuals, particularly in the residential space, where they can have an aspiring appraiser go through an AI FIRREA program and come out with really some of the most essential tools and skills to be an appraiser, to get that experience component, and then to come into their practice in a way that they couldn't do on their own. And actually start growing their business and adding appraisers to the numbers of practitioners out there, especially in rural and underserved areas where it's desperately needed. So FIRREA not only allows the aspiring appraisers to get in, but I think it will allow more ongoing appraisal businesses to consider taking on more trainees that are trained to a competent level and just need to come into their practice and learn a little bit about geographic competency in the area that they're going to serve, and also a little bit about how that particular office may do things and prefer to customize the work product that they offer to the market. So that's another area of FIRREA that we're finding great demand in. And I don't know that was originally, I don't know that people originally realized that side of the AI FIRREA coin.
Excellent. Well, let's take another quick break and we will be right back.
The Appraisal Institute offers a wide array of affiliations, from the candidate for designation and the practicing affiliate statuses to designated membership and student affiliation. Whether you're a lawyer, banker, assessor, graduate student, or certified appraiser, the Appraisal Institute is the premier global professional association among a myriad of professionals either directly or indirectly connected to the appraisal industry. Become a member today or find out more at appraisalinstitute.org.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Craig, I think that FIRREA topic is really a nice segue to talk about your diversity project. What's that look like?
Joan, thank you for that. I think FIRREA is just one piece in the efforts of the Appraisal Institute around the diversity of the profession, and certainly around our organization. When you can't find a supervisor, any supervisor, much less one that practices in the area that you want to practice, or has the same underrepresented characteristics that you do, whatever the circumstances are, that's a tangible barrier that prevents people from entering and continues sort of the issues that we have around diversity in the profession. So FIRREA, and particularly AI FIRREA, as it's launched, going to immediately provide a pathway for aspiring appraisers in many areas of the country that have really not been able to take advantage of the only path available. In my own neck of the woods here in the upper Midwest, where there's vast areas and not a lot of appraisers to cover some of those rural areas and underserved areas, there's nobody practicing there. So getting a supervisor in those areas to then start your practice is a difficult thing to do. And the same is true for underrepresented populations. You know, if you can't find someone who shares the same values and has the same background that you do, it's very difficult to break into the business. So FIRREA is just one of the efforts that we've launched to try to increase the diversity in the profession, and also therefore in our organization. Have a couple others, but you've made the connection nicely, Joan. That's exactly how I see things happening here in 2023.
Very good. Well, Craig, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today, and I hope you can dig out tomorrow from your blizzard, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Joan, I don't see you offering to bring a snow shovel and catch the next flight. No, no.
I do not.
And the other thing, I don't see you offering your guest bedroom for someone to.
Well, let's not do this on air, okay, Craig? But we can talk, okay?
All right, Joan.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Craig and Joan. Craig, we're so excited for 2023 and all that it has in store for the appraisal industry and AI. So thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to our listeners for joining us as well. If you have any comments or would like to be included in a future Buzzcast, reach out to us at comments@appraisalbuzz.com. Thanks and have a great day.